Cycle Rogue is a deck that uses a lot of different cycling cards to be able to get through your deck really quickly. You use things such as the Moonstone Mauler to be able to get asteroids in your deck, and that can be used to deal damage to your opponent's board or to your opponent's face and reduce them down. Once you've gotten 20 cards drawn throughout the game, which isn't very hard, which you can generally do around turn 4 or 5, you'll be able to play down the Playhouse Giant. And the Playhouse Giant is an 8/8 minion that is essentially just a big body, but since you're playing it down for free, you'll be able to take out your opponent that following turn in general, because of how much damage you can get onto the board through that. The main combo for the deck is you're going to be using the Twisted Webs Weaver to be able, in addition with your Moonstone Maulers or your Phoenixes, to be able to just cycle through a lot of different cards. There are other cycling cards in the deck as well, so you have your Platysaur, you have your Eat the Imp, you have your Dubious Purchase, and you also have the new Cultist map. The Cultist map is actually one of the really strong cards that I found in this deck archetype. Since you're able to essentially choose your card that you're going to be getting, you can usually get it as a draw 2 card, and it also is you're also able to choose how you play it out, because if you draw 2 cards, drawing 2 cards by choosing which order you get them is generally going to be stronger than drawing just 2 cards in general. So it does have a lot of thought behind it that you need to be doing. The cards that you're looking to mulligan for in this deck, you're looking to keep the Cultist map quite often. You're also wanting to keep the Space Rock Collector, Dubious Purchase, your Twisted Web Weaver's alright to keep some of the time. The Phoenix is generally pretty good to keep. And then also any other cycling cards. So Eat the Imp is okay if you have a minion that you can easily use it down onto. But yeah, the Mauler you want to be using in addition to having your Shadow Step, so you don't want to just play it down just straight onto the board. You want to be using it with your Weaver, but also your Shadow Step to be able to get out heaps of asteroids at the same time. And you'll notice just there that my opponent did a trade just then into the Phoenix. They should have traded into the 2/1 because I can get the Phoenix out pretty easily again. The only difference between it is that with the Phoenix you do have it being a 2/2 rather than a 2/1, but it's really easy for me to get the Phoenix, and since I'm essentially recycling back through it, I'm going to be getting it back out onto the board again anyway. The asteroids generally will go in an alright sort of way that you want for it. Like, it doesn't really matter too much where the asteroids land half the time. A lot of the time you're just wanting it as the extra draw so you can get your Playhouse Giants out earlier. The hand that I have here is, it's going to be quite easy for me to get the Playhouse Giants out in the following turn, and with the Eat the Imps and Dubious Purchases and things, I can use those to be able to take out the rest of my opponent's health. They just used the coin there and they played the Yamoto cannon, so they are able to get my Phoenix off the board, which is a little bit annoying, but since I did draw into the Space Rock Collector, I can now use the Dubious Purchase really easily. I end up just using it first, just because it could end up hitting asteroids and it could then allow me to take out the 4/1 minion, which was what I was hoping for. Unfortunately, it didn't end up being the case. I play the Platysaur down here just so I can get the extra draw out of my hand, and then I'm now using the Prep and the Eat the Imp onto the 1/1 because I want to be able to get rid of the onto the 2/2 because I want to be able to get rid of the extra cards that are there. You'll notice that I also used it on my Phoenix rather than on the Imp then, because with the Phoenix I am wanting to have it down and ready to go, and I'm wanting to have it so I can get the extra value coming from it. I was considering playing it down onto the Wisp because of the fact that I didn't want to be completely board locked, but the other thought that I had in that turn was I was thinking of using the Weaver in that turn as well to start drawing through some more cards, but I ended up opting for the other option through it. They end up getting their Dubious Purchase out. It does hit my Platysaur, but that's not really too much of an issue for me. And you'll notice that once again they've used it to take out my Phoenix, which is generally not going to be the correct play, because with the Phoenix, like, yes, it is a 2/2, and you are able to take that sort of minion out, but in general it's just going to be better using it to take out one of the other minions, because the Phoenix you can just keep getting back anyway. I do some trading here, and then I use the dubious purchase to clear the 4/5, because there is a quite high likelihood that I'll have lethal coming out of this hand that's here. The asteroids end up hitting into the opponent's face, or one of them does end up hitting into the opponent's face, and then I have lethal once I use the Manager as well onto them. So you'll notice that it involves quite a lot of thought in terms of getting your win condition out and ready to go, and you're also trying to think about how you're best going to use the asteroids and the minion damage going into the turns as well. Going into the next game, it is against a Paladin, and this deck in general is going to be very strong into Murloc Paladin, because you can keep control of the board quite easily using your asteroids, your backstabs, all your different minions that are here as well, and they don't generally get a chance to get towards the later game, because the 8/8 giants which are able to get onto the board in general is going to be too much to deal with for them, even on the turn 5 or turn 6, because of that sort of fact. Unfortunately here I did end up getting the Web Weaver as my card through the Platysaur, so I'm going to have to play it down earlier than I usually would like to. I still obviously do play it down here. I use the backstab on the 2/1, and then I trade into the, then I'm going to be trading into the 1/1 with my 1/2. I also did do a complete play of my hand just to be able to get the Phoenix out. And with the prep and the dubious purchase, it means that I'll be able to get the Phoenix out on the following turn as well if I need to. They end up getting the Brain Guild down, so it is going to allow them to draw some extra cards. And I just trade my 1/1 into their guy, and then I use the dubious purchase here as well, just to cycle through some more cards. I end up having the Manager in my hand as well, so I'm just deciding here whether to use the Manager or to use the Web Weaver. I end up opting for either and just getting the weapon ready, just to deal some more damage to them. Since I do have quite a strong board, it is going to be quite difficult for them, especially if they don't have the Steam Thief. I end up playing down the Web Weaver here just because I do know that I can get all the different cards out of my hand that I need to, and I can start cycling through the cards really quickly. I did get the Mauler here, so I'm just going to play it down. I'm going to use Shadow Step on it, and then I'm going to play it down a second time, because it will help me cycle through a lot more cards. And then I ended up getting another Shadow Step, which is really good for me, so once again I'm going to play it down on the Mauler, and then I'm going to use it again. And this is essentially just getting a lot of different asteroids down into the field and ready to go. I got another Phoenix as well, which is quite strong. Right here I'm using the Manager to hit into the 4/3, and then I'm going to use my Phoenix to trade into it, because it will allow me then to get another Phoenix out and I can draw some more cards. I got another backstab, which is quite good for me as well, so I'm just going to go face with my minion that's here, and then I'm going to use the backstab onto the Phoenix and play down the giant, because I don't need another Phoenix out onto the board right now, and in general the giant is going to be the stronger play. And you'll see that it is currently the end of my turn 4, and yeah, I ended up having a very strong board that they couldn't deal with. So like with the cycle, you are able to take out a lot of the minions using the asteroids, and when the Murloc Paladin doesn't have any extra damage on their board already sticking there, they'll have a very hard time trying to deal with those minions. With this hand here, I did just keep the Eat the Platysaur and the Twisted Web Weaver. Twisted Web Weaver's in general going to be a card that you'll play in the later sort of turns, and I did have the Platysaur here as well. So what I'm planning on doing here is I'm playing down the Platysaur, and then I did get a Shadow Step, so it's not the most ideal card to be getting, and I end up just keeping it. I end up just using the Shadow Step to get the Platysaur back into my hand, because I can use the Web Weaver next turn if I need to. And the other thing as well to think about is if they were able to take out the Platysaur, I would be in a bit of trouble going into a future turn. I played on the Web Weaver here because since I'm playing against the Loh Shaman, the Loh Druid, it means that it's more than likely not going to be able to deal the 2/3 damage to my minion, because they generally aren't running swipe at the moment because of how greedy the builds are. at least as of the current recording that I'm doing for it. I end up here getting just a space rock collector, and I'm just deciding what the best play is going to be, so I just use the Eat the Imp onto the 1/1. It draws me some extra cards, and I'm also hoping to be able to then keep cycling through. I did get a backstab here, so I use it so I can get the Phoenix out on this turn, and then I use a backstab on the Phoenix so I can draw some more cards, because once again, the more that you can cycle with this deck, the stronger it's going to be. They end up using a Revelation, so they're not really posing too much of a threat right now, and they've also got their location out onto the board. It got a Glacial Shard, so it is important that I do trade into that. With the 2 Space Rock Collectors in my hand as well, it means that I'll be able to cycle through some more cards too. I did draw into a prep here with the Platysaur, so I'm just going to use the prep just to get it onto the field. And then I'm going to play down the Mauler and Web of Deception back up, just so it's back into my hand. And then it means that I'm also not going to lose that Mauler. Because with the Mauler, you do want to make sure that you're keeping it active in your hand and you're not running out of those particular choices there. And the problem that I did end up finding here is that I got to a point where my hand was completely full. Like, it is possible that I would be able to get the Giant out this turn, but it's also extremely likely that I'd be overdrawing my Phoenix if they were able to take it out. They end up using the Reforestation, and with how their hand is sitting at the moment, it in general is probably just better me holding an extra turn. They use the Phaser here, so it takes out one of my minions and hits the Stealth Spider, which is fine. Like, I'm not really too concerned about them doing that. And next turn I'll be able to get the Giants out anyway. I did draw into my Giant here, so right now it's important just to decide how I'm going to deal lethal damage. And that's what I'm thinking about, how I'm going to get to the lethal on them. So I use the Own Manager onto my 2/1 because I once again don't want to be overdrawing with the asteroids, because the asteroids obviously is going to be dealing a bit of damage to them. And I do just play down another of the Maulers just to deal damage onto them. I draw into a cultist map as well, which in general is going to be quite strong. And because of how my hand is at the moment, it is not the most ideal thing to be playing down the other Playhouse Giant, because I will be overdrawing, and I was also considering Ceaseless Expanse, but I did end up opting to play it down because once again I was thinking if I could get that onto the board, it would leave me in a strong position. If they have Ceaseless Expanse, it's pretty much a lose situation for me anyway. They use the Loh, and unfortunately for them, they don't end up having the Ceaseless Expanse, which would be the way that they'd win here. And I didn't really have any other sort of play that I could do, so if they did have the Ceaseless Expanse, it would have been game over basically anyway. They do just play down the Playhouse Giants, and unfortunately I do end up milling the Asteroid, but they end up conceding from it. So, yeah, the deck, if I had have gone into the next turn and they did have Ceaseless Expanse, it probably would have been extremely hard to come back from, because I wouldn't have had a board, and they would have obviously had the 2 Giants on their field as well. So it's one of those things where it's not really going to be that strong for you. With this hand here, I'm going to be keeping the Cultist map and the Dubious Purchase. The Shadow Step is one of the cards that is quite strong if you have the Mauler, but it's not that strong if you don't. And you also want to be thinking of using it on the turns that you're going to be having your Twisted Web Weaver out anyway. And the Cultist map is probably one of the strongest cards coming from this expansion for Cycle Rogue, simply because of the fact that you can choose the order in which you draw those cards. I ended up drawing into a Phoenix, and I've got both Giants in my hand, so my hand is quite slow at the moment. I draw into another Wisp here as well, which is good. I got the Cultist map, which is strong for me, so I'm just going to here use the Cultist map, get the Space Rock out, and then I'm also just going to choose another Dubious Purchase in case that I need to get some more draw happening, because my hand is quite weak. The backstab would have been okay if I had a web weaver, but since I don't, it's obviously not as strong. And the dubious purchase in general is going to allow me to draw some more cards that I need to. They end up playing down their 2-1, which is fine, like it's not really posing too much of a threat toward me. I use the dubious purchase here just to draw some more cards. And with the prep sitting in my hand, it will be useful for dubious purchase in the following turn to be able to deal with the opponent's board. And if I really need to, I can use a dubious purchase on the Eat the Imp to draw some more cards quicker and using less of the mana. And that's the consideration that I was doing right then. I was deciding whether to use the prep on the Eat the Imp to get rid of the 2-1 to draw some more cards or not. And I ended up opting just to keep the dubious purchase play open. I draw into another Phoenix here, which is quite strong for me, and with the Platysaur as well, I am going to be able to draw through quite a few more cards. I ended up getting a Web of Deception with the Platysaur, which isn't the most ideal card because of the fact that it does allow a lot of tempo and a lot of value going into the turn. I end up using the prep and the dubious purchase here just to be able to clear some of the opponent's minions, and I am just going to play down both of the Phoenixes here. It's got no chance of overdrawing either of them with the hand that I have, and it's more than likely they are going to be able to take out the 1-2 if they need to onto the board. They end up using the Dirty Rat, and unfortunately for them it does hit my Playhouse Giant, and that obviously does cause a bit of an issue for them in terms of the next turn because of how much damage I'll be able to pose. The Leeches end up hitting into my 1-2, so it does get rid of the Web of Deception here. And I was just opting how I'm going to play that this turn, so since I do have both Shadow Steps and the Mauler, I end up using the O Manager first, just to be able to get the extra 2 damage onto the board, because it's quite likely that I want to be able to deal with this Dirty Rat and most of the minions that they have here without using my Giant or anything like that. I do have a Backstab here as well, so I use that onto the 0-2, onto the Leech, and then I just use another Mauler. Any damage going face as well will be quite useful for this turn too. And then I'm just using my Phoenixes to trade into the Dirty Rat because I want to be able to draw and cycle through more of the cards that I can. And if I can, I'm also looking to try and get the Giant play out ready to go. With the prep draw that I did just get, it does mean that I will be able to get the second Giant out if I need to. A thought that I do have with this turn is if I end up playing it down and then they AoE the board, it will put me into a weaker position. So I end up just keeping the Giant for this next turn, because if they did have the AoE clear, it would mean that I'd be able to get another Giant out ready to go anyway. And with the current hand that I do have, it's quite likely I'll be able to deal lethal anyway. I end up drawing into a Wisp here, which is fine. I do have the Mauler in my hand, which will be very useful for dealing some more damage to them. So I do just play down the Mauler here. With the Weaver, it means that I'm going to be drawing a lot more cards through the deck. And I do end up just checking here how much damage I'm actually dealing, because with the game, you do want to make sure that you do have all the damage that you're posing onto the board that's there. And I'm currently sitting with 11 damage left on them, so I'm just trying to cycle through to get as many asteroids as I can onto them without the, and since they're on 7 health, I do want to make it so I can use my weapon swing if I need to be able to take out the last bit of damage that they have. And it ends up just being lethal from there, because you can tell that it's lethal because of the fact that I can't use any of the cards in my hand now, even though they do have the mana cost that's available. So yeah, as you can see, like Cycle Rogue, you do have a lot of options that you can be doing each turn, and just being able to get through a lot of your cards in your deck allows you to have many different options of what you want to be doing against your opponent. Something that this deck does struggle against is if your opponent has armor gain, or essentially if they're a warrior, it makes it very difficult to deal with them because they can deal with your giants quite easily, and they can also gain enough armor that you're going to run out of your minions to be able to deal extra damage to them. With this hand here, I do end up full mulliganing it. Eat the Imp would be okay. if I had a Wisp in my hand, but since I don't, it's not the most ideal card. Backstab would have been okay as well, because most of the priests that I am playing against has been more of the aggro priest, but I end up just opting to just play without those cards. They end up getting the 3/3 onto the board and a 2/4, so they are using the aggressive priest package, and it's important here that I do take out the minions as best as I can, so I use the backstab on the 3/3 and just hit into it. I don't really want to be taking more damage than what I need to be, especially in the early game against an aggro priest deck. The Mauler in my hand will be quite useful in this matchup because of the fact that they don't have many large cost minions, and you want to be dealing with a lot of their board as easy and as quickly as possible. And right now I'm just deciding what my best sort of action's going to be. I end up just opting to play the Mauler down, and then I use the Weaver onto it. It allows me, so next turn if I need to, I can get the Weaver and the Mauler back down onto the field to cycle through some cards. But it also means that I can deal with some of the minions that are on my opponent's board. I can trade into the 3/2 and get rid of that, so I can start dealing some damage to my opponent's face. I did draw on to eat the imp here, which is fine. It does mean that I can use that to cycle through some more cards quicker, and in an aggressive sort of matchup, you are wanting to get through your cards a lot easier, and drawing 3 cards is a lot better than drawing more than likely not that many, since I didn't really have too many actions in my hand to do. And as you could see, if I did have just played down the Weaver, I wouldn't have really gotten any more actions anyway. They do have the 3/2 and the 2/4 on the field, so they are sitting in quite a strong position to be able to use the Jug to get some extra stats on the field. So it's important in these next turns that I am getting down a decent sized board. They end up going quite aggressive here, which is, I think, not the most ideal situation for them. I drew into the cultist map as well, so I'm just opting to get the Wisp because it allows me to just get the extra cycle happening, and then I use it to, then I click on the asteroid just to be able to deal some extra damage to them. I drew into a Shadow Step as well here, which will be quite strong, and when I do get the next Mauler, what I'm thinking of right now is I'm just thinking of how I'm going to deal with the board that they have. I use the Eat the Imp here on my Wisp just to cycle through some more cards, and with the extra, the Space Rock Collector, I do play it so then I can get my Phoenix down onto the board. So now I'm sitting in a position that I will be able to start dealing with the minions that they potentially may have. And with them only having the 3/4 on the board, I am sitting relatively comfortably as long as they don't have any major damage coming from hand through the Zephyrs that they end up getting. They end up just dealing some more face damage, so once again, it is probably, and they did trade better than the other opponent where they traded into the Phoenix. It is in general, as I mentioned earlier, better to take out the other minion rather than the Phoenix, because the Phoenix is, you're just going to be able to just keep playing down anyway. I use the Shadow Step on the Mauler here just to draw and cycle through some more cards, and then I play down the Wisp here. I'm hoping, and what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to cycle so then I can get asteroids hitting into their minions rather than me having to trade each time. I end up getting the Phoenix down onto the board, and the asteroids end up hitting into my opponent's minions as well. With the 2/2, I trade into their 3/2, so it does obviously get rid of that minion from them. And I use the Manager here just to take out the 2/1, because I don't want to be taking any face damage. I didn't use the weapon in that situation because I didn't want to take any extra damage in case the Zephyrs would have been able to get that extra damage onto me. So yeah, like it is about opting and thinking about how your best trades are going to be. They end up playing down their Spirit here, so it is a 4/9, which does mean that it's going to be a little bit tricky to be dealing with. I play down my Space Rock Collector to just cycle through some more cards. I am trying to get some asteroids to hit some of their minions so I can get them dealt with as easy as possible. I use the backstab here on the 2-3 just to be able to get rid of it from what I can. And I use the cultist map to be able to get myself an O-Manager. Once again, I'm just trying to get rid of the 2-3 from the 4 mana from the board without having to use any of my minions onto them. I end up getting the dubious purchase here as well, so I use the dubious purchase to take out the 4-3 now. The asteroids end up hitting onto face a couple of times, which is really good for me. And then I end up just going face with the other minions that I have. I use the shadow step here on my twisted web weaver, so I'm not going to be I'm not going to be dealing fatigue damage to myself. And then I play down the phoenixes to get an even stronger board for next turn. And as you can see, I still do have a lot of draw cards in my hand, even though my deck's completely empty. So it does show that this deck does have the ability to cycle through a lot of cards without even using your main cycle cards. Or your other cycle cards. You have so many different options of ways of cycling. They end up playing down the demon here in hopes that they would get something useful from their spells, but unfortunately for them, they don't. If you've enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe, and bye for now.